Hello everybody and welcome to this week's assembly. Usually when we come back in January we have a couple of weeks of working on some Scots things and you learn poems and you do everything like that. And I know this week that Miss O'Neill has put lots of stuff up online and some people have been doing it. So this week's assembly is based on that and it's going to have a look at Scots language and culture. It's going to be a bit different from usual, but we're going to have a look at lots of different things. A lot of our Scots Week focuses on Robert Burns, and he is one of the most famous Scottish poets that people know about. He produced lots and lots of poems that we still use today and that are celebrated all around the world. And we're going to have a look at his life and we're going to look at how people celebrate Burns Day. Robert Burns was born in Ayrshire on the 25th of January 1759. His father owned a farm, and although that meant the family didn't have a lot of money, Robert had a good education. Many people at this time did not go to school as they had to work to help their families. At the age of 15, Robert started to write poems and songs to impress girls. A lot of his poems are about love. When he was 25, his father sadly died. He took over the farm with his brother, but continued to write songs, poems, and lots of other things, often inspired by his farming life, such as To a Moose. He wasn't a successful farmer and spent a lot of his time writing. He was about to move abroad to Jamaica when his first book of poems and songs got published. It was a hit with the wealthy people in Edinburgh. After spending some time in Edinburgh, he returned to the West and married. The money he earned from the book ran out. He got a job as a customs officer, which still allowed him to write. He started to be inspired by the French Revolution. He wrote about how the rich and poor should be equal. At the age of 37, Robert Burns died. Lots of people came to pay their respects at the funeral in Dumfries. After his life, his poems and songs continued to be very popular. And here are some of his poems that he's most remembered for. Many of his poems inspired other writers and other performers to do something else with them as well. And Hogmanay wouldn't be the same without Auld Lang Syne. Each year, on the date of that he was born, we celebrate Burns. The 25th of January is the night that we do it. And it's different each year, depending on what people want to do, but it's usually the kind of things that we see in pictures here. People usually have what's called the Burns Supper, and they do address to the haggis, and eat haggis, neat and tatties. They sometimes have ceilidhs, they sometimes dance, they sometimes do lots of things. Now, a lot of these things won't go on this year, but you'll still be able to do things in your household, within your family, to celebrate. So if you're doing something, then you can always post it on learning journals and we can be able to see what your family are doing. In the post on learning journals, I left a link to this video. It is a short clip of somebody reading Address to a Haggis, which is one of the main poems that people read on Burns Night. Go and have a look, listen to it, and then come back into the PowerPoint. Burns isn't just celebrated in Scotland, he's celebrated throughout the entire world. And here's some facts that I found when I was reading up about him. He's the third most popular statue that isn't a religious statue in the entire world, and there are lots of them all over the world. He's celebrated in many countries, and one of the main countries is actually China, where there's lots of Scottish societies. Lots of different people celebrate Burns in different ways, and in fact in Scotland there are people that celebrate it in different ways. For a couple of years, but not this year obviously, I used to go to a restaurant, and it's an Italian restaurant. And in that Italian restaurant on roundabout Burns, they have an Italian Burns supper. And instead of an address to haggis, they have an address to the lasagna, which is usually made with haggis, or addressed to some kind of pasta dish. And it makes it a little bit light-hearted and a little bit funny. Of course, there are many other famous Scottish poets, and here are just some of the ones that I found. There are some here that you might recognise. J.K. Annan does a lot of poems that children read within schools. Some of Burns' poems are quite difficult and quite lengthy, but lots of new poets or poets from our current times produce poems that are a lot easier for children to do. I still remember when I was at school having to learn and recite the Sairfinger, which I know that we still do in school just now. So these memories stay with us for a long time. During our usual assembly, or so I'm told because I've not been at James Gillespie's for a year yet, so I've not been able to see it, we only have certain people that come up and actually do the poems. Everybody gets to do it in class that wants to, but up into the assembly, there's only a few people from each class. So today we're going to do it slightly differently. As you see, I've put up a stage. It's your turn to perform your poem for your family so that everybody gets a chance to do a performance this week. I'm sure you all did brilliantly to recite your poems to your friends and family. Finally, before we go, a big happy birthday to anybody who's had a birthday in the last week or so, and I look forward to speaking to you again sometime. Have a lovely weekend. If there's still snow, go out and play in the snow, and if not, stay safe.